Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm on South Broadway in Fells Point, and behind me is St. Patrick's Church. And if you're following along real time, more or less, you know we are quickly headed into St. Patrick's Day and our annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. That's what we're going to talk about. Here at this church, not only is it named after the St. Patrick, of course, but the congregation got its start in 1792 after the very first St. Patrick's Day celebration here in Baltimore, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I'm thrilled I'm going to be joined by a gentleman, Tim Harvey, who's been helping organize the parade for many years. But before I turn it over to Tim, let me just say a word about St. Patrick and about how we got parades to be a thing on St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick was born more or less around the 400s in Britain as it was transitioning out of Roman rule. By his own records, he was captured by Irish pirates as a young man, escaped, went back to Britain, became a Christian, and then became a Christian missionary. He may not have been the very first person to bring Christianity to Ireland, but he was certainly the most influential early Christian there. He went on to become the Bishop of Armagh and the Primate, or Bishop of all of Ireland. And one interesting thing is he's never been canonized. He was born and died before that was a process, apparently. So maybe we can say he is a saint by popular demand and universal recognition. So that's St. Patrick. How about parades? Well, Charles Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities. This is sort of a tale of two countries, Ireland and the United States. Let's start with Ireland. In Ireland, by the early 1600s, people were celebrating St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, the date of his death, with feasts. These were kind of quiet affairs with family and friends. The Vatican sanctioned these, gave its nod of approval in 1631, but it took about 400 years before St. Patrick's Day became a public holiday in Ireland. That was 1904. And at that time in Dublin and other cities, there were military parades. But get this, the bars closed on the parade days to make sure we solemnly honored St. Patrick. It wasn't until the late 1960s in Ireland that we get the big public hooplas that we know today. In America, we started celebrating publicly and loudly a little earlier. The first public celebration here was in Boston in 1737. Other cities took it up pretty quickly. 1766 in New York, Irish soldiers in the British Army, this was before the Revolution, we were all British back then, had a military parade in New York. St. Louis, 1810. Chicago, 1843. Although for about 50 years in the early 1900s, Chicago didn't have a parade until Mayor Daley the Elder brought it back. But they started theirs in 1843. After the Civil War, Irish communities across the country began celebrating, both to celebrate their Irish heritage, but also to reaffirm their Americanness. By the early to mid-1900s, communities, not just Irish communities, but communities of all sorts across the United States began celebrating. That's when we got the green shamrock t-shirts and the green beer and the sort of public hoopla that we know today. All right, that's parades. What about Baltimore? I said our first parade was in 1791. We were early adopters. And this is what a journal called the Maryland Journal and Baltimore Advertiser reported after that parade. They said after the celebration was over, quote, the company had partaken of a repast suitable to the day and occasion at Mr. Brett's in Fells Point. I think that means that they had a parade and then they went to Fells Point and had a huge meal with a lot of food and booze. That same journal reports that in the parade, none other than St. Patrick appeared for those of us in Baltimore back then. And that was one of the inspirations for the Baltimore's Irish Catholic community to form the parish St. Patrick's, whose church is behind me right now. All right, I'm going to wrap up and say that in Baltimore, we didn't celebrate annually for many years, and like Chicago, we stopped celebrating with a parade in the 1900s, bringing it back also in 1956 by the Ancient Order of Hibernians, and that first parade was an enormous success. 20,000 people. Archbishop Keogh was in attendance, as well as Governor Theodore McKeldin and Mayor Tommy D'Alessandro Sr. But I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Tim to say a little bit about what's going on with the parade today. Tim, we are all yours.
Hi, I'm Tim Harvey. About 40 years ago, I joined the Ancient Order of Hibernians, and at that time I was asked to be the division's parade representative. So that's how I got on the parade committee. A few years after I was on the parade committee, I was asked to serve as the treasurer for the parade, and I did that for about 13 years. I'm still on the parade committee, and I'm also a member of the board of directors of St. Patrick's Celebrations, which is the overseeing nonprofit organization that manages the financial aspects of the parade. When I was a child back in the early 70s, my father took me to the parade, and I can remember standing in front of the Pratt Library, the main branch, and reviewing the parade as it came down Cathedral Street in those days. In 1999, my father was the Grand Marshal, and it was one of the quickest parades because it was a bit of a snow and ice out that morning, as well as rain. It was a mixture of weather, but we carried on, and I think it took about 20 minutes to get the whole parade through, where normally it takes a good 2 hours. We started some years later honorary Grand Marshals, and they were to honor people who may not be a member of the Irish community, but have contributed. Rex Barney was one of the early ones, and John Stedman, the Sun sports writer, who was very appreciative of the honor. I was fortunate enough to be honored to be the Grand Marshal in 2006. Things that a lot of people don't know about the parade is that the cost involved. Parade cost over $85,000 to put on. We receive no money from the city. We pay the city to host the parade. We pay all the bands. All that funds are raised by 11 Irish organizations in the Baltimore metropolitan area. And the 5K race is their biggest fundraiser. The race that's run before the parade, it runs along the parade route. The runners always seem to enjoy the race, and there's a party for the runners at the very end. So I think they enjoy that more than the race. The parade is on March the 16th. It starts at the Washington Monument, and it comes down Charles Street to Pratt Street and ends at Harbor Place. You can look on Facebook under St. Patrick's Parade for Baltimore, and there's a website, St. Patrick's Celebrations Inc. You can look us up there. All the information is there.